6 months into our marriage and my wife still wouldn't let me touch her. I was drowning my sorrows at a bar when her sister told me about the one that got away. The downtown bar was a blur of neon and regret. Hannah sat next to me, the silk of her hair brushing against my arm, sending a shiver through me. "Leo, you don't look so good," Hannah said softly, a genuine worry in her voice. "Maybe you should slow down." I ignored her and signaled the bartender for another whiskey neat. I threw it back, the burn in my throat, a welcome distraction. "Hannah, tell me something." I slurred, the bitterness rising in my chest. "Am I a total failure? Married 6 months and I haven't so much as held my own wife's hand." Hannah's body went rigid. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Leo, have you ever thought? Maybe there's another reason for it." I turned, seeing the conflict in her eyes, and a desperate urge took hold of me. "What do you know? Tell me." She bit her lip, her gaze flickering. "Leo, you know my sister. She was crazy about a guy back in high school. His name was Mason. They were inseparable. Then Mason moved to London for college, and she never really got over him." It felt like a switch flipped in my brain and everything clicked into place. All the cold shoulders, the flimsy excuses to avoid being alone with me. Her heart had been given away long before I ever came into the picture. "She's probably waiting for him." Hannah's voice was barely a whisper, but it landed like a sledgehammer. "That's why she won't get close to you." I doubted another glass. The whiskey churned in my stomach, but it was nothing compared to the acid eating away at my heart. I remembered our wedding day. Victoria, my wife, had looked like an angel in her white dress. But her eyes were always distant, a million miles away. I told myself she was just reserved, just shy. Now I knew the truth. Her heart had never been in that room. It had never been with me. I don't remember how I got home that night. I just remember Hannah's steady presence, her arms supporting me, her voice a soothing murmur in my ear. The next morning, I woke up with a splitting headache. But Hannah's words were crystal clear in my mind. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty room. Victoria was already at work, the condo as cold and silent as always. On a whim, I opened her laptop. I typed in her birthday as the password, not expecting it to work. It did. In an encrypted folder, I found them. Dozens of photos of a handsome, smiling guy. Sunshine seemed to radiate off him. The timestamps were from years ago, high school. My hand started to shake. I opened her WhatsApp, pinned to the top of her chats. The name Mason burned into my retinas. I clicked on his profile and scrolled through his Instagram feed. Picture after picture showed his life in London. Beautiful scenery, a wide happy grin plastered on his face. Then I read their chat history. Every message was a knife twisting in my gut. Victoria would ask him about the weather in London, if he was eating properly. The affection in her words was suffocating. It was a tenderness she had never once shown me. But the final blow, the one that shattered me completely, was a message from her. Marrying Leo was just to get my parents off my back. I have no feelings for him, and I will never ever sleep with him. I sat there frozen for what felt like hours. The morning sun streamed through the windows, but it couldn't touch the ice in my veins. For the last 6 months, I hadn't been a husband. I'd been a prop, a tool she used to manage her family. She had trapped me in a marriage while her heart remained locked away, chained to a ghost in another country. That night, Victoria came home late. I was waiting on the sofa. I watched her walk in exhausted, kick off her heels, and head straight for the bedroom without a single glance in my direction. "Victoria," I said. My voice was ice. She stopped and turned, her brow furrowed. "What is it?" "I want a divorce," I said, my tone so calm it scared even me. Victoria stared, a flicker of surprise in her eyes before the mask of indifference slid back into place. "What are you talking about?" I stood up and walked over to her, looking her directly in the eye. I said, "Let's get a divorce. I know about you and Mason. I'm done being the joke." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "For 6 months, I have tried everything to make you happy, to get you to see me," I said with a bitter laugh. "Now I finally get it. You can't force these things. Your heart was never here to begin with." Victoria looked away, unable to meet my gaze. "Leo, just calm down." "I am calm." I pulled the divorce papers I'd already drafted from my jacket pocket. "Here, look it over. If it's all good, just sign it." She stared at the document, her silence stretching for an eternity. Finally, she looked up, a stubborn fire igniting in her eyes. "I'm not signing it." And with that, she turned, ran up the stairs, and slammed the bedroom door. The lock clicked shut, leaving me alone in the wreckage of our life. I clenched the shredded divorce papers in my hand, the sharp edges digging into my palm and drawing blood. The sound of Victoria slamming the door still echoed in the silent condo. The lock clicking into place was a final definitive barrier between us. Moonlight filtered through the blinds, illuminating the scattered pieces of paper on the floor like fallen petals, a grim monument to our shattered marriage. For the next week, Victoria moved through our home like a ghost. She was gone before I woke up. The soft click of the front door my only alarm. She returned late at night, the sound of her heels in the hallway, the signal of another lonely evening. Once we passed in the doorway, she clutched her purse and hurried past, her hair brushing my hand, a touch colder than a stranger's. I reached out to stop her, but she dodged me with a practiced heartbreaking grace, as if she had rehearsed the move 1,000 times. This suffocating Cold War lasted 7 days. On the 7th night, I waited in the living room, watching the clock tick past 1 o'clock in the morning. The moment the lock turned, I shot to my feet. Victoria jumped, startled, even under her perfect makeup. The dark circles under her eyes were like bruises. "Victoria, we need to talk," I said, my voice sharp in silence. She turned away, tossing her bag onto the sofa. "There's nothing to talk about. How long are you going to hide?" I stepped closer. "This marriage is a sham. What's the point of holding on to it?" Victoria let out a cold laugh, her nails digging into her palms. "Leo, do you think a divorce solves anything? My parents will just line up the next blind date. The next guy might be even worse than you." "Worse than me?" If she hadn't pursued me, making me believe she was actually interested, I never would have married her in the first place. "So, I'm just your shield." I was shaking with anger. "For 6 months, I bent over backward for you like an idiot. And this is what I get." She fell silent, the moonlight tracing the hard line of her jaw. After a long moment, she finally spoke. "I'll pay you $20,000 a month. When Mason comes back, I'll grant you the divorce." Her words hit me like a physical blow. My mind flashed to my parents' rundown house back home. The crippling cost to my mother's chemo treatments. The shame I felt when my coworkers showed off their new cars while I stared at my phone. 20 grand a month would change everything. I could breathe. I wouldn't be drowning in mortgage payments and car loans. But my pride made me scoff. "Well, you certainly don't mess around. Do you make it $40,000 and $1 million payout when we divorce?" My voice rose, fueled by a toxic mix of humiliation and desperation. "If I can't have your heart, I might as well get a severance package, right?" Victoria's family owned a multi-million-dollar corporation. I knew she could afford it. Her eyes narrowed, her gaze like a knife. I expected her to storm off, but she just stood there chewing on her lip, her nails scraping against the leather of the sofa. The seconds ticked by. Just when I thought she was going to walk, she spoke. "Fine." I was stunned. I decided to press my advantage. "One more thing. Since your heart belongs to someone else, I should have the right to see other people. We live our own lives. She gets to wait for her long-lost love. I get to find someone new. It was only fair." "Do whatever you want," she replied instantly as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She turned and walked to her bedroom. As the door closed, a tremor ran through me. I couldn't tell if it was from rage or relief. The next morning, a debit card and a supplementary agreement were waiting for me on the dining table. Victoria's handwriting was neat and sharp. At the bottom, she'd added a note. "Funds will be transferred on the 1st of each month. Breach of contract results in a doubled penalty." I held the cold hard plastic in my hand. The sunlight streamed in, catching the embossed numbers, making them glint with a cruel irony. I knew in that moment our marriage had officially become a business transaction. And as I traced the numbers on the card, a dark secret pleasure curled in my gut. If love was off the table, maybe money could fill the void. In a world this cynical, maybe cold, hard cash was the only thing that could make this whole charade feel a little less pathetic. The bass from the club speakers vibrated through my bones and strobe lights sliced through the darkness. I was hunched in a corner booth, a mountain of empty glasses in front of me. No amount of whiskey could extinguish the fire of resentment burning in my gut. Since signing that ridiculous contract with Victoria, every night I came home to that empty, silent condo and her locked door was another twist of a knife. I was nothing but a prisoner in a gilded cage. A man who had traded his dignity for a paycheck. "Another one," I yelled at the bartender, my voice raw. Just then, a stunning figure moved through the crowd toward the bar. She wore a slinky red dress that exposed the smooth, pale skin of her shoulders, and her long hair swayed with every step. Even in the dim light, she was breathtaking. On a reckless impulse, I got up and stumbled towards her. My mind was buzzing with the terms of my deal with Victoria. If she could pine for her ghost, why couldn't I find some comfort of my own? I slid onto the stool next to her, pulled the new debit card from my wallet, and slapped it on the bar. Fueled by alcohol and arrogance, I leaned in. Hey, you're exactly my type. 10,000 a month. Be mine. The words hung in the air, audacious and crude. A strange thrill shot through me. A release of 6 months of pent-up frustration. Leo. The woman turned her head. An eyebrow raised. What did you just say? When I saw her face, the alcohol buzz vanished. The delicate features, the playful smile playing on her lips. It was Hannah, my sister-in-law. Crap, I muttered, fumbling to grab the card off the counter. Oh, hey, Hannah. Nice night, huh? I got to go. Left the oven on. I started to babble, desperate to escape the mortifying situation. Huh? Hannah laughed, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. Not so fast. A knowing smirk spread across her face as she pulled me back onto the stool. Leo, was that an offer? 10 grand a month to be yours. My face was on fire. I couldn't form a coherent sentence. Oh, I get it, she said, her eyes sharp and intelligent, seeming to peer right into my soul. You found out about my sister's little secret. So now you're out looking for a little revenge affair. She had me cornered. I threw my hands up in surrender. Fine. Yes, your sister has her long-lost love. So why should I have to be a monk? It's a business deal, so we both get to do what we want. I felt a surge of righteousness. I wasn't the one who broke our vows. Hannah steadied me for a long moment, then leaned in close, her warm breath tickling my ear. Well, you could always try me. Her voice was a seductive whisper, the last word trailing off like a hook, snagging on my frayed nerves. I jerked back, staring at her in disbelief. Are you serious? Hannah just tilted her head, her smile widening into a sly grin. What's the matter? Lost your nerve. Better me than some random stranger, right? The music pounded around us, but my mind was a vortex of white noise. Staring into Hannah's glittering eyes, I couldn't tell if this was a new transaction or a much more dangerous trap. The air in the bar was thick with a scent of whiskey and opportunity. Hannah, leaning against the bar, looked like a flickering flame. The silver chain on her neck caught the light, a stark contrast to the classic pearls Victoria always wore. My Ice Queen wife was a statue. This girl was alive. Every fiber of her being radiating a dangerous, intoxicating energy. You said it. No takebacks. I heard myself say, my knuckles white as I gripped the debit card. The whiskey had made its decision for me. Hannah's eyes curved into crescents, a tiny mole near her eye dancing with her smile. It felt like she was branding me. The scent of jasmine from her perfume mingled with the bar's smoky haze and ignited a desire I had suppressed for 6 long months. Honestly, compared to her sister's perpetually cold expression, Hannah's vibrant, energetic presence was everything I craved. Cross my heart, she whispered, standing on her toes. The hem of her dress brushed against my leg. All I could think about was Victoria's painfully conservative knee-length skirts and the countless nights I'd spent alone. This girl right here was closing the distance. As she leaned in, I saw a flicker of nervousness beneath her playful exterior. The second my lips met hers, her fingers dug into the fabric of my shirt. Her response was clumsy but passionate, her teeth accidentally bumping against my lip, which only made me pull her closer, my hand cradling the back of her neck. Alcohol and lust coursed through me as we stumbled out of the bar and into my apartment, our tangled shadows dancing on the wall like a scene from a strange, feverish dream. The next morning, I woke to find Hannah curled up beside me. The image was so jarringly different from the memory of Victoria's perfectly neat, distant form in our bed. We hadn't slept together. When it came down to it, a shred of reason had stopped me. That marriage certificate, however meaningless, was still a fact. I couldn't make Hannah the other woman. Not to mention, she was Victoria's sister. Ow. I groaned, trying to shift my position. The movement woke her. Hannah sat up, rubbing her eyes. The morning light outlined the delicate curve of her waist. Leo, you have to take responsibility for me now, she said, her voice husky with sleep. Her captivating eyes fixed on me. Don't be ridiculous. I laughed it off. Nothing happened. I don't care. Hannah flopped back on the pillows, pouting playfully. You made a move. You're responsible. Then her tone shifted, becoming serious. I'm not rushing you. When you and my sister get divorced, we can be together. I can wait. I was floored. Are you for real? Of course I am. TCH, what do you even like about me? I had to ask. A small smile played on her lips. I like what a mess you are. What the hell? Fine, responsible it is, but I have to ask. You don't have someone that got away hiding in your past, do you? The very idea sent a chill down my spine. The last thing I needed was another ghost. As I said it, the image of those photos on Victoria's laptop flashed in my mind. There's only you, Hannah said, her eyes reflecting my own image back at me. I hope you're my first and my last. The raw intensity in her gaze struck a chord deep inside me. Was this what it felt like to be wanted? I honestly had no idea. Over the next 6 months, Hannah and I grew closer. She had her own marketing firm, and when she found out I had a degree from Northwestern, she brought me on board. By day, we were a team, and I was in awe of her as she commanded a boardroom in 5-inch heels. By night, we grabbed tacos from food trucks and went to team dinners. Our bond strengthening with every passing day. We even took a trip to the coast, filling our phones with pictures of us smiling under the sun. Hannah was the one who pulled me out of Victoria's shadow. It was time. I couldn't keep up the charade anymore. I was going to divorce Victoria. Then one stormy night, I came home to find her curled up on the sofa. Empty wine bottles were scattered across the coffee table, and a dark red stain bled into the carpet like an open wound. What happened to you? I asked, an unwelcome instinct making me sit down beside her. Mason, he's getting married, Victoria mumbled, her voice thick. She looked up, her makeup streaked with tears. A firework of pure joy exploded in my chest. But the celebratory feeling died when I saw the hollow, shattered look in her eyes. This was a Victoria I had never seen before. All her defenses gone, leaving only broken pieces. And then my real trouble began. Leo, she whispered, leaning against me. Her hair, smelling of wine, brushed against my hand. Can we start over? Her fingertips traced the lines on my palm, a gesture so similar to how Hannah would absent-mindedly draw circles on my back. I flinched away, my back hitting the arm of the sofa. Victoria, we don't work. Have you tried talking to Mason? Maybe if you told him how you feel, he'd reconsider. I knew it was a terrible thing to suggest, but at that moment, I would have done anything to push her back toward her ghost and away from me. I just wanted out. This woman was poison. No, it's too late. She interrupted, laughing a bitter, broken sound. She suddenly sat up straight, her eyes sharpening like daggers. You're never home anymore. Are you seeing someone? Before I could answer, she grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my skin. I can forget about the past. Just come back and we can make this work. We can have a real marriage. My blood ran cold. Every happy moment with Hannah flashed through my mind. She was the one who had healed me, who saw my potential and didn't judge my messy past. And Victoria, the woman who had treated me like ice, was now looking at me with pleading eyes. This marriage, born from a transaction, had become a twisted wreck in a swamp of desire and lies. Outside, the rain beat against the windows as if trying to wash the whole absurd night away. The grandfather clock in the living room ticked with an oppressive rhythm, each second echoing in the tense silence. I stared at Victoria's pale, tear-streaked face, digging my nails into my palms to stay grounded. This woman had once been my unattainable dream. Now she was a cage. I was desperate to escape. Victoria, it's over. We have to get a divorce, I said, my voice shaking but firm with a newfound resolve. The wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor, the red wine spreading across the cream-colored rug like blood from a fresh wound. She stumbled, catching herself on the coffee table. You're leaving me for another woman? Who is she? Does she have more money than me? How much is she paying you? A cold, humorless laugh escaped my lips. Victoria, the world doesn't revolve around you. You wanted to be a saint for your long-lost love, and I accepted it. Now that I found someone, you want me to come back and play house. I'm a person, Victoria, not a placeholder you can activate and deactivate whenever you want. She lunged at me, the stench of wine washing over me, her cold lips pressed against my cheek. Leo, I know you're angry. I never let you touch me. We can change that tonight. I'm a virgin. Leo, I've never been with anyone. I can give you my first time. I turned my head away. A wave of revulsion washing over me. The thing I had once desperately wanted now felt tainted and worthless. It's too late, Victoria. I don't love you anymore. The word struck her like a physical blow. Her body trembled and tears streamed down her face. No, you can't, Leo. Look at me. I'm your wife. It was too late for all of that. I pried her fingers cold and tight like iron clamps from my shirt. When you're sober, we can talk about the divorce. As I walked away, I heard the sound of something else shattering behind me, but it didn't even make me flinch. For the next few days, Victoria vanished. I moved out of our condo. My texts went unanswered. When I went to the front door, my knocking was met with dead silence. Then one evening, as I was walking out of my new apartment, holding Hannah's hand, a black Porsche screeched to a halt beside us. Victoria stormed out of the car, a heel catching on the pavement, her hair a wild mess. Her eyes locked on our intertwined hands and turned bloodshot with rage. "Hannah, how could you seduce your own brother-in-law?" The slap was so fast, I didn't see it coming. A red mark instantly bloomed on Hannah's cheek. My protective instincts kicked in and I pushed Hannah behind me, my own anger boiling over. "That's enough. Hannah didn't seduce me. Stop acting crazy." "Didn't seduce you?" Victoria's voice was shrill with fury as she pointed at Hannah. "Don't think I don't know you two have been sneaking around." She pulled her marriage certificate from her purse, waving it at Hannah. "Legally, he is my husband." A small crowd was starting to form, their whispers of homewrecker and affair reaching my ears. I felt Hannah tremble behind me. I ripped my tie loose and unbuttoned my collar. "Listen up, everyone," I announced, my voice ringing out. "For our entire marriage." She refused to touch me because she was saving herself for some guy in London. We had an agreement to live separate lives. We even signed a contract that said we'd get divorced as soon as her old flame came back. A wave of gasps rippled through the onlookers. They weren't stupid. They could see this was far from a simple affair. Suddenly, Victoria's entire demeanor changed. She became fragile, grabbing my arm, tears streaming down her face. "Leo, I know I was wrong. Please come back. I'll do anything you want. Just come back." "Sister, what do you see him as?" Hannah stepped out from behind me, her eyes flashing with anger. "A toy? You left him alone in an empty house for a year. And now that he's finally moving on, you decide you want him. If you ever cared about him at all, you would let him go." Victoria froze, her nails digging into her palms. "I don't care. As long as this certificate is valid, you're the other woman. If you want a clear conscience, you'll leave him." With that, she turned and ran, her heels clacking unevenly on the pavement. I knew then that she had no intention of letting me go. This divorce was going to be a war. The wind rustled the leaves around us. "Don't worry," I told Hannah softly. "I talked to my lawyer. That contract we signed is ironclad proof the marriage was broken beyond repair. Worst case, a 2-year separation will guarantee a divorce judgment." Even as I said it, a pit of unease formed in my stomach. Sure enough, when I got back to the condo to retrieve the document, it was gone. I tore the place apart, but it was nowhere to be found. Victoria appeared in the doorway, a smug smile on her face. "Looking for something, honey?" she cooed. "Was it our agreement?" "Oh, that's too bad. I'm afraid I accidentally burned it." The look of triumph on her face was sickening. I had never imagined she could be so shameless. Furious, I stormed out of that home for the last time. 3 days later, I got a call from my mother-in-law, summoning both Hannah and me to the family home. It was clear she knew everything. When we arrived, the atmosphere in the sprawling mansion was thick with tension. In the formal living room, the crystal chandelier cast a harsh, unforgiving light on everyone's faces. My father-in-law sat silently on the leather sofa, a storm brewing behind his calm facade. My mother-in-law clutched a handkerchief, her knuckles white. "Explain this." My father-in-law's voice was a low rumble. Victoria immediately burst into tears. "Dad, Mom, look at him. He's with Hannah. I've been trying to hold this family together for over a year, and this is the betrayal I get." Hannah started to speak, but I put a hand on her arm. "Sir, ma'am, it's not what it looks like. Nothing has happened between me and Hannah. The issue is Victoria." My voice was clear and steady. "From the day we got married, she has only had one person in her heart. Her old boyfriend, Mason." "You're lying." Victoria shrieked, her makeup a mess. "I cut off contact with Mason years ago." "Really?" I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshots of the chat logs. "Then what are these?" "She told him she only married me to get you off her back. She swore she would save herself for him our entire marriage. I was never even allowed to touch her hand." My mother-in-law gasped, dropping her handkerchief. My father-in-law's hand tightened on his teacup, veins bulging on his fist. "Victoria, is this true?" She chewed her lip, finally mumbling. "That was in the past. Mason's getting married now. I want to try to make things work with Leo." "What's wrong with that?" "What's wrong?" Hannah shot to her feet, her eyes red with fury. "What's wrong is that you treated your husband like a backup plan. He's a human being, not a placeholder. My father-in-law slammed his cup down on the table, tea splashing everywhere. This is a disgrace. His eyes darted between all of us. Victoria scrambled to his side, clutching his knees. Dad, I know I messed up. Please help me. If Leo just ends things with Hannah, I promise I'll be a good wife from now on. Her father looked at her, his expression unreadable as he fell deep in thought. As we left the mansion, Hannah's hand was cold as ice. She whispered, Leo, maybe this isn't meant to be. I hope you and my sister can be happy. After that, I saw less and less of Hannah. I moved back in with Victoria. True to her word, tried to be a wife. We became a real couple. But could someone that obsessive really let go of the past? I doubted it. One morning, as she was putting on her makeup and humming a song, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced over just as the screen lit up. I quickly looked away before she could notice. My heart went numb. The name that had flashed on the screen was Mason. This woman was still tangled in the past. It was then I understood Victoria's nature. She wasn't malicious. Not really. She was just a fool. And I knew once again that I had to end this. Not even a week after I saw Mason's name on her phone, Victoria slapped a set of divorce papers on the dining room table. Her makeup was perfect, her eyes were ice, and the haughty queen was back on her throne. Let's get divorced. I stared at her, thinking it was some kind of trick. What game are you playing now? It's not fun anymore, she said with a shrug, her red nails tapping on the paper. I know your heart is with Hannah. There's no point in forcing it. She stood, her dress brushing against my leg. Let's just say I'm bored of this. Looking at her smug face, my hand holding the papers trembled. I had already cut ties with Hannah while this woman was still texting her precious Mason. She was the one with a foot in both worlds. Yet, she was turning it all on me. But this was my chance. It was time to walk toward my own future. Victoria, I'm giving you one last chance. Let's make this work. Stop talking about divorce. I held her gaze, forcing a pained expression, my nails digging into my palms. The pain was a reminder. This performance had to be convincing. I had spent the last 3 days planning every detail. I'm divorcing you, she said, slamming her coffee mug on the table. It's non-negotiable. The frantic pulse in her neck betrayed her forced calm. Why? I deserve a real reason. Fine, if you have to know, Mason isn't getting married. He's coming back soon. And I've realized he's the one I truly love. Shameless. But her obsession was exactly what my plan depended on. I immediately turned on my phone's camera, aiming it directly at her sneering face. Dare to say that again on camera. Her eyes widened for a second. Then she lifted her chin like a proud peacock. I, Victoria Shawn, am officially and resolutely divorcing Leo Carter. She enunciated every word with deliberate cutting precision. You won't regret this. I stepped closer, making sure my heavy breathing was picked up by the microphone. I will never regret this. The arrogant curve of her neck was almost painful to look at. Fine, after this, we're done. You can never ever come back into my life, no matter what happens, I said, each word a binding vow. I promise, she said, straightening her back for the camera, practically giddy to get the words out. After the divorce, I will never bother you again. Good, I said, stopping the recording. I'll sign the papers. 1 month later, at the city clerk's office, the scratch of the stylus on the tablet was the only sound between us. I pointed to the settlement line on the agreement. The $1 million payout we agreed on. I know I don't need it now, but a deal's a deal. Victoria signed without even looking. Fine, I'll have my assistant wire it to you. She stood so quickly she knocked over her coffee. The brown liquid blooming across the divorce decree like a final ironic seal. Outside, an autumn leaf landed on her shoulder. We walked out of the building, each holding a copy of the divorce certificate. She took off her sunglasses, the scent of Chanel perfume mixing with her cold smirk. Congratulations on being single again. By the way, I think my sister's still into you. She hasn't dated anyone. Now you can be with her without any guilt. I guess I'll have to start calling you brother-in-law. Wishing you two a lifetime of happiness. Don't forget to invite me to the wedding. I'll be sure to get you a big gift. With that, she slid into her car, gave a final breezy wave without looking back, and sped away. I watched her car disappear, a slow smile spreading across my face. My other phone buzzed with a new notification. It was a message from Victoria, or I should say my ex-wife. Mason, honey, it's done. I'm divorced. I'll plan a huge party for you when you get back, and don't bother sending your resume out. I have a senior executive position waiting for you in my company. The messages kept coming. Of course, it wasn't her precious Mason. This was a fake WhatsApp account I had created, perfectly mimicking his profile picture and name. A few weeks ago, after seeing her still fawning over him, I had felt no guilt in blocking the real Mason on her phone and replacing him with my decoy. I had my Mason account tell her his engagement was off and he was coming home for her. She immediately took the bait, and with a little more encouragement, she was the one begging me for a divorce. This woman, I thought, shaking my head. She still has no idea. I sent a few more vague, encouraging replies to keep her in her fantasy. Then I took a picture of my divorce certificate and sent it to Hannah. "I'm free. You still want me?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Poor baby. Come over and bring your ID." I read the message and smiled. The sun was finally breaking through the clouds. "What? You two got divorced?" My former mother-in-law shrieked when she heard the news. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll find you a much better son-in-law," Victoria said coolly from the sofa, peeling an apple. A new pearl necklace gleamed at her throat. The better son-in-law, of course, was Mason. She was still blissfully lost in the fantasy I'd woven for her. Hannah squeezed my arm, flashing the corner of her ID card at me. I knew what she meant. She wanted to go to the courthouse right now. Her clever eyes crinkled into the same sly crescent. Seeing the stunned, flushed faces of her parents, I took a deep breath and tightened my grip on Hannah's hand. "Mom, Dad," I said. "At least I wouldn't have to learn new names for my in-laws. I'd like to marry Hannah." They both looked like they were about to have a stroke, but then my ex-wife delivered the final ironic nail in the coffin. "Mom, Dad, don't be so old-fashioned." Victoria chimed in. "Leo and my sister are in love. We should be happy for them." Hearing that, her parents seemed to deflate. If their eldest daughter didn't care, what ground did they have to stand on? Their objections dissolved into a single weary sigh. The wedding march swelled through the grand ballroom as I walked Hannah down the aisle. The train of her white dress studded with tiny diamonds swept across the floor, sparkling like the laughter in her eyes. Applause erupted from the guests, but my gaze found Victoria in the crowd. She was a stark figure in a black dress, her fingers tracing the rim of a wine glass, a storm cloud in our sea of joy. "Ignore her," Hannah whispered, squeezing my hand. "Today is about us." Later during the reception, we made our way to her table. Victoria slammed her glass down, red wine sloshing over the sides. "Well done, you two." "Really?" she hissed, her voice cutting through the music. "Creating a fake Mason to trick me into a divorce. You must have been desperate to be together to pull a stunt that low." The truth, it seemed, was out. The real Mason had indeed returned to the States a few days ago with his new wife. They had even invited Victoria to their welcome home party. The news had apparently caused her to destroy every piece of furniture in her room. The guests around us fell silent, their eyes locked on our little drama. Hannah started to speak, but I held her back and pulled out my phone. "Victoria, you could say a lot of things, but you can't rewrite history." She shot to her feet, her black dress catching on a plate, sending it clattering. "Who else could it be? The real Mason never contacted me. You used a fake account, told me he was coming back for me, and pushed me to divorce my husband." Her voice cracked with fury. "I waited over a month for him, only to get an invitation to his wedding." I couldn't help but smile. Beside me, Hannah was trying desperately to suppress a laugh. "Maybe you should watch this first," I said, and played the video. Victoria's cold, defiant face filled the screen. "I, Victoria Shawn, am officially and resolutely divorcing Leo Carter." Her voice echoed from the phone speaker, full of arrogance. "I will never regret this." The video version of herself, so steely and certain, now stood in stark contrast to the trembling woman before me. A murmur went through the crowd. Victoria's face turned crimson. "You planned this all along." "Planned it?" I countered. "Who was it that said after the divorce, 'I will never bother you again'? Who was the one texting her old flame while rushing me to sign the papers?" I leaned in closer, my voice low. "Should I read aloud all those Mason, honey, I'm waiting for you messages you sent to my fake account?" She was the one who wanted everything, playing both sides until she was left with nothing. Victoria trembled violently, the wine glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the carpet. She stared at the video on my phone, at the woman who had thrown everything away for a ghost, and her lips moved, but no sound came out. Hannah gently took my arm, her voice clear and strong. "Sister, a marriage isn't a waiting room. It's not a placeholder you use while waiting for someone else. You're the one who chose to let go. Why are you trying to ruin this now?" She paused, her eyes glancing at the broken glass on the floor. Besides, I seem to recall you telling Mom and Dad that we were in love and deserved their blessing. Did you forget? The memories like boomerangs were all coming back to hit her at once. She looked up, her eyes red but tearless, her pride the only thing holding her together. I turned off the video and put the phone back in my pocket. Victoria, you made your choice. I gave you a chance. I turned away, Hannah's fingers locking with mine, the warmth from her hand chasing away the last of the shadows. The band started playing again, and the sound of our friends and family cheering drowned out the silence from the corner table. Looking at Hannah, her face radiant with joy, I realized that none of the games or the anger mattered anymore. In this absurd, tangled mess, I had managed to find my real happiness. And that made me the winner.